computer and it is 7:02.
All right,
Oh, this was all different, don't they?
It does.
it's all set up weird.
Very strange, yeah.
We've got a new owl or a new thing here at the town office, so that's why we're looking at the screen and wonder. It's 7:03 and like to bring the selectmen meeting for select board meeting for Tuesday, August 27th to order. And I'd like to remind everybody that the meeting is being recorded for Facebook, YouTube. I always get that wrong. Okay. Is there any public comment?
And I see Jill had just hopped on, so I don't know if she heard that.
Oh, the meeting's called to order? Is there any public comment?
You should be careful. They may ask us to
Yeah.
post it on Facebook. That might be the
Yeah.
public comment.
No, I don't see any, so
All right. So no public comment prior to the start.
they'll bump it over to you.
All right, so in terms of items to be added to the agenda, if approved by the chair and the board, the fire chief has asked to come back to start giving some of the more regular updates on fire department happenings, and that would take part during our slew of updates. If there are any objections, speak now, or hold your peace.
Got no objection.
No, nor do I.
Perfect.
Sounds
So
good.
GVFD update. We do have two scheduled appointments tonight at 7:15. We can welcome Caitlin Miller, Georgetown Central School's new principal. And at 7:30 or the close of the meeting, whichever comes later, we're gonna have an executive session regarding the acquisition of real property or economic development. We want to get through the bulk of the business and then hop in there. And we do have the minutes of the August 6th meeting for review and approval.
I move to approve the August 6th meeting.
Second,
All right, any discussion on it? Nope. All in favor? Aye.
3-0. In your packet, we had emailed along electronically the June 30th, 2023 final financials, as well as some hauling numbers for July for review. Under assessing items, I'd note that pickup work is still underway, so if you hear reports of an assessor has approached someone's house, odds are it is actually the assessor approaching someone's house. And, he will be in the office tomorrow, putting a lot of the work from the field into the computer as part of that process as we gear up towards commitment. In your packet for correspondence, there was a whole host of items, and I apologize for as many as I sent. The first was a policy email update from Senator King, as well as a bunch of other resources, federal funding available. Normally, Senator King's updates are a lot shorter, but this one was about 20 pages printed, so I'm glad I could send it digitally to save a tree. But I just wanted to flag that because there's an election going on this year, he's actually not allowed to send out those emails until it's over. So if we don't have him on the agenda, it's nothing personal, it's just the rules. The office of State Senator Eloise Vitelli sent out her regular email update. And on the next agenda, her legislative update that goes out in the mail, we received yesterday. So that'll be in your packet for the next time. The governor, State of Maine Department of Health and Human Services, there's a new septic system permit search database that the state is trying to roll out. We're excited to see, if it's got any kinks in there, excuse the pun. And yeah, so we will work through that. I know some residents have found it a little bit easier. I still have a little difficulty navigating, and I will spare Mary the Mount Ararat joke. The Governor's Office of Policy Innovation put out a notice regarding a technical assistance program that ties into resiliency, and that's something I will be spending a little bit of time to dive in deeper on. The State of Maine Governor's Office put out a press release as well for some Business Recovery and Resilience Fund grant program recipients. And Acclaim Hospitality, also known as Gray Havens, received $5,000, which we're very excited about Georgetown getting some of that money. And we also included some communications between the Sheepscot Island Company and town office regarding a visit on September 11th. John and I and anyone else from the town that would like to join us from the town office, town staff, elected officials can go out to McMahon and see what is happening.
September 11th?
September 11 at 10 a.m. We're meeting at the ferry boat. And they'll hold us hostage until they decide to send us home. The Saginaw County Emergency Management has put out that there were some classes coming up in October. These are not the required classes, but as a practice, I will always send these along because development professionally is good. The Solid Waste Management Committee put out a message to the community regarding the transfer station rules. Really a good reminder, nothing new in there except to remind folks that closed means closed and trespassing is still trespassing. And that was sent out on a couple of different email lists, but I wanted to make sure we officially included it with the town items as well.
Can I interrupt you there?
Yes.
So well, at the last meeting, we discussed folks who had gone in after hours. Have letters been sent out to those folks?
We have not.
We don't know
gotten-
who they all are. We don't know. We can't
Right.
identify all of them.
Okay, so that's a good,
But that was part of the issue that the
Right.
Solid Waste Committee was trying to highlight.
right,
Surveillance cameras are now in position,
right,
and therefore, and we are not just happy with long-term residents, no matter who you are, bopping in and out to the transfer station when it is officially not open.
And there was one individual that was identifiable that
Right.
we had discussed should ratchet up a level of notifying law enforcement because of the behavior, which we did, but we did ask law enforcement to take a low stakes approach to start, just
Right.
reminding folks the rules and
Right.
going from there.
okay, thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, Aria. And in your packet, there was an additional item that came out yesterday that I'd accidentally omitted. The Georgetown Community Center had sent along a letter regarding the playground, which was just opened this past weekend. The letter I will be getting on to the Conservation Commission as well, because the playground is on Conservation Commission land. The community center at present believes that they don't really need an MOU because it falls under the same umbrella of insurance that the town has down that neck of the woods, but that's something that I think the Conservation Commission will want to weigh in on. And I included a notice from Age Friendly Georgetown. They are working on getting a community calendar put together, which will be beefed up from the one we've got on the town website. And I'm really excited to see how that process unfolds. And lastly, Mr. Flaherty from Bath, involved in the Main Spirit of America program, sent along a notice about Municipal Officials Appreciation Month. I'm including it not because we municipal officials want to be appreciated, but I do think it's a great message to anyone here in town that we can help share. Were there any questions on my monologue of correspondence? I promise it was all riveting stuff. Seeing none.
So the Saginaw, the incident report, do we have any updates on the burglaries?
No,
Okay,
I wish we did, but not at present. So.
fine, thank you.
And there were no other items of correspondence and continuing items. We did have some receipts for pumping for Angela Spence at 6 Town Landing Road. And as we discussed last week, or 2 weeks ago, actually a month ago. Wow, it was the beginning of August. At our last meeting, the Vicky Hunt Revocable Trust, we acknowledged their overboard discharge license renewal, but it wasn't on the agenda. So officially on here now. We also have received one for Jacqueline Olson of 15 Turnip Island Lane in Georgetown. And there were no other continuing items. It is 7:11, and I think we can get through committee updates. The minutes were received for the Solid Waste Management Committee, the Recreation Committee, and the Town-Owned Property Management Board. We had no membership items, and we could turn over to liaison updates.
I don't really have anything from the planning board, meetings. There's actually 2 of them between then and now to add to it. Just other than I went to them. TOPMB, they are working with the recreation committee to try to patch some of the cracks and holes over there at the, tennis / pickle / basketball court. And really, that's about it. That was the biggest thing. I mean, there's some little things, but that was just housekeeping for them, I guess.
Awesome.
I can go for the rec committee, as you've probably heard, the art show, for Friends of Reed State Park And the rec committee's fall frolic is going forward on September 14, weather permitting. Remember last year, the hurricane did us in. So we're hoping for better weather this year at East Beach, at the park. And looking for volunteers to help with that event. There'll be a sign up genius that'll be passed around, and so folks can participate in it that way. And it's open to all Georgetown residents. Yoga is on the first and third Sundays of each month at the school. Thank you, Caitlin Miller. And we have 2 different instructors. And so those times, keep a lookout on the community calendar for those. And pickleball, as John noted, continues down at the courts, as does, of course, tennis. And we appreciate that the TOPMB is working with the rec committee to try to resolve the short-term issues related to those cracks in the pavement. And then I don't know if Susie's on, but the Georgetown Attainable Housing Initiative, their next meeting is September 30th at 5:30. And I believe I don't know if it's going to be hybrid, but it may be. And so be on the lookout for information about that important issue as it burgeons in our town. I will say, it sounds like from what Susie said, the MCOG hours that we allocated to them have been used well and effectively.
Awesome. And just an update on that, I do know that they are now in receipt of a final report. And I believe they're hoping to get on a select board agenda prior to that meeting, just to share the good news with us.
Okay, great. We have Mary in the waiting room.
Oh, goodness. Thank you for catching that.
Sure.
And Brian.
The Conservation Commission has reviewed the letter from the Georgetown Community Center about the playground. They continue to believe in member of understanding is necessary, and feel that issues about maintenance are as important as insurance. I think they have continued concerns about safety in that area, and I have some concerns about the process by which approval is granted to do anything within conservation lands that are supposedly administered by the Conservation Commission. There aren't many of them, actually, and they're very conscious that the select board has ultimate authority. But I think it is not clear if one wants permission to do something like put in a parking lot or add a recreational activity such as a children's playground. Who are they supposed to ask for permission to do that? And I just don't think that's clear. The Solid Waste Committee, of course, is concerned about intrusions into the transfer station after dark on days when the transfer station is not open. And later on the agenda, there are some suggestions for amending the solid waste ordinance at the same time that we go to a special meeting to approve contracts for the communication tower and whatever else ends up on that agenda. They're strictly limited to questions of enforcement and reflect comments from the town attorney several months ago when amendments were submitted and not presented to town meeting because there was a fundamental question about commercial haulers limiting access or tonnage or frequency of visits or size of vehicles. And those issues remain unresolved as far as the committee is concerned, but especially given the new surveillance camera opportunity, there's concern that now that we know all this stuff is going on, we should clarify the procedures for dealing with it. And not only just make it less feasible, which is a separate issue, but in the ordinance deal with how the consequences play out. And I think that's it for my liaison reports.
Thank you, Bronwyn. Any questions on the reports? And if not, we are,
I have one. The people have been asking about the tickets
Yes.
for the fall frolic. How is that being handled? They're not
Yes.
here at the office, so they gotta be somewhere, right?
Yeah, so I checked in with Judy Teller, who's the new chair, right? And so the tickets is wrapped up in the commercial user contract. So that's the long version of the answer, Mary. The short version is we should know by next Tuesday's meeting how that's gonna be handled.
Okay.
I was asked not to get too far down into the weeds on that because it's still a little bit up in the air. May not be like last year because of the commercial user agreement. And Gary Pankey, who's the vice chair of the rec committee, is discussing that issue with Gary Best from the park and trying to negotiate the broadest possible level of people. If you recall, in the first year, we did it essentially unrestricted. I will say that anyone who has a pass or who is a minor, 5 and under, 12 and under, 12 is $1, 5 is 5 and under 5 is free, 65 and over, Maine resident is free. All of y'all, please don't take a ticket when they become available, because we know, we're being fiscally responsible here to try to not cost the town anything. But that's a little bit up in the air right now, Mary.
Okay.
But it's a great
Okay.
question. And I did want to say, in the midst of all this talk about the playground, it's a fantastic playground. Thank you for a wonderful time at the carnival. You and all the GCC volunteers. The kids really seem to have fun.
awesome. And so now it is 7:19, so we're only 4 minutes behind, which is actually really good for us, Caitlin. So if you want to come on up, say hello, and you actually don't have to come far because of the owl, but up to you. Welcome.
Step forward.
Why don't, what, Caitlin, swap out?
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Sweet. Hi, you want me to introduce myself?
Absolutely.
I'm Caitlin Miller. I am the new principal in Georgetown Central School. I'm so excited to be here, very grateful to be part of this community. And I'm really excited to see what I can do to help these students achieve and make the community as wonderful as it still is. Keep it going as wonderful as it is. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I will just say Caitlin has hit the ground running here in Georgetown. I know that while also juggling her own marriage and honeymoon and all of that, she was attending meetings of our energy audit stakeholder group and attending presentations for the town as well. And we're really excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
And she's been working all summer,
all summer.
which is pretty much
Yeah.
next door, so.
Yeah, right next door. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to talk to anybody in the community.
And I think Bronwyn has one.
Yes.
Well, I'd just like to hear more about your background, where you live, where you studied, where you were before you are here.
Absolutely. So I am lucky enough to live very close. I live in Bath, which is another fantastic community. So my commute's not too bad at all. Prior to this, I taught general education. I taught first and second grade in Wiscasset and in the Brunswick School District. I recently graduated from Farmington with my master's in educational leadership.
Go Beavers.
Go Beavers. And was really lucky to be able to grab this amazing job that just happened to fall right into my lap, and I'm so excited to be here. Let's see what else about me. I like I said, I've been a general education teacher for 6 years, so I have that connection. I think it's important for administrators to be as connected to the general education and special education as possible. Coming right out of that world, I feel really connected to it. one special thing about my new role is that I still get to teach. So not only am I principal, but I'll also be teaching fifth grade reading and writing this year, as well as doing some math intervention, because in Georgetown, we all come together to get the job done, even if that means a couple different jobs. Yeah, I have a really fat cat at home who I love. I have an elderly dog who I love, and my brand new husband. So life is good.
And he's a first responder.
Yes, my husband is a first responder. He's the deputy chief of the Woolwich Fire Department, so pretty close by. And he also works full time in Portland as an EMT, and he's going to paramedic school. His first day of school is the same as our first day of school.
Oh, there's the siren, right?
And that's not him. but-
Next school board meeting is September 18th.
September 18. Yep, it'll be at 5:30. Did I get that right? 5:30. And that's right here at the school, but it's also available on Zoom. So you can join any way you'd like to. We'd love to see some people there from the community. We always like to have community members there.
Jen's saying 5.
5 PM.
5 p.m.
5 p.m. Thank you, Jen.
Any other
Thank you
questions?
very much.
Of course.
Thank you very much for coming.
Of course. I'm happy to be here. Thank you. Please,
you.
please stay in touch. Reach out if you guys need anything or just want to get to know me. Thank you. Thanks, Aria.
Yes. I actually have an idea for a little bit of a civic day for the kids to come over and meet all y'all.
That'd be fun.
Love
Yeah, yeah.
Love it.
All right. Another agenda item later meeting.
All right, and so I'm gonna give a pretty quick, in-depth town administrator update. I just wanted to thank the town for sending me to the town management conference up at Sunday River. I learned a lot, and it was actually really great this year to connect with some of the nearby managers that I think will be very helpful. I just wanted to share that one of the presentations I found particularly enlightening and something I want to take some more thought on are ways that towns and the county, hello commissioners, can actually collaborate a little bit more in providing services. You know, one opportunity that Lincoln County's doing that just in the back of my head, they have a county-wide animal control officer position rolled into the sheriff's department budget. And I know that for big town or big cities, communities like Topsom Bath, you know, you've got someone full-time on, but in some of the more rural communities in Saginaw, like Georgetown, we're still having trouble finding someone. Additionally, they also in the Cumberland County area, and this is what I'm even more excited about, they have a county assessing office. As we know, across the state of Maine, there's a dearth of assessors and the average age every year as more retire is continuing to climb. Our assessing agent will be in the coming years retiring as well. And I do know that there are others in this area in particular that think that'd be a great model to explore and see what avenues there could be. And yeah, I also wanted to share that I met with Senator Collins' State Office Representative Halsey Frank today at 4 p.m. He was in town for a reception at Gray Havens, and I wanted to show Halsey some of the great work that's taken place at the wharf and put in a plug for more federal money when and where we can get it. I did also share with him a little bit, you know, touch base. So the Friends of Seguin Island had put in a congressional spending request that was denied. And I wanted to tell Halsey that I'd love to sit down, talk with him and come up with good strategies. He does think that Georgetown is ripe to be a potential town for future spending because we check a lot of boxes. We're coastal, we're rural, we haven't gotten federal monies in a while, you know, outside of the FEMA stuff. So I'm hopeful. I also want to share that in regards to the streetlights, I think we're finally past this for now, knocking on wood. I have been down Robin Hood Road. The shielding this year, I think, is actually tinting, and they put the wattage at 20 versus 19. But I've heard no complaints since they've done the change. It's on the new pole again, knock on wood, and we'll go from there. I also wanted to share that the owl is here now. I hope that we like the new Zoom right in on people's faces. I will say that I'm planning to do some training for our boards, commissions, and committees. And my plan is to have a morning and an evening session after hours to accommodate folks. My goal and kind of expectation is that every committee will send someone or more than someone because the hybrid meetings really are a strength, I think, that Georgetown has. The TOPMB will be holding a special meeting tomorrow, and the Cemetery District trustees will be meeting on September 11th. Those dates came in after we'd had upcoming meetings. We touched base briefly earlier that John and I will be out on McMahon on September 11th to continue fostering improved dialogue between Psycho and the town, Sheepshead Island Company. There also, if you hear from anybody Five Islands neck of the woods, there's a somewhat suspicious boat that's on a mooring it's not registered to. The boat had been up in Robin Hood Road, or not Robin Hood Road, Robin Hood Cove, had some issues with an anchor. Somebody from Malden has generously let them use their mooring. Moral of the story is to say I had a good talk with Woody today, the harbor master's on it, and making sure that we don't end up in a whisper situation
Right.
again, which is really good. And Robin Hood Road Stream Crossing Culvert Project, say that 5 times fast, is likely to kick off next Tuesday, weather permitting. And I did want to let you know, Aria, we closed the loop on the Recreation Committee Gmail. And I
Yes.
believe it's Georgetown Recreation
Yeah.
at Gmail, but I want to confirm it. So
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and I did get an email from it, so they're
Awesome.
very, it's the little things that make a difference. Do we have anybody from rec over here? Well, Jill's one of our volunteers, so, Jill Lorm's on there. No, it makes a difference, because there's, lots of activities going on, so thank you for making that happen.
hey, that one was easy. I
Yeah.
like easies.
Yes,
Any other questions on my report, or I will quickly hand this over to Mary?
Yes, mine's very brief. As you know, because I forwarded on to you, and you should all have hard copies as well. The 2023 audit is finally complete. And I have forwarded that on to the bank as requested by them. I do not have a firm date yet for the 2024 audit. Normally, that usually starts next week. But since they just finalized the last one, we haven't scheduled this one. However, I'm still working on all the docs as though it's happening next week. The sick vacation fund, all the letters have gone out to the folks that need those. And then, when we get to did you put GA on the budget or on the
GA is
agenda?
coming up later.
yes.
So when we get to general assistance, I'll talk about that stuff. There's a lot happening with general assistance that we need to talk about. So, and then the ARPA funds. So whenever we get to those conversations, I'll hop in them.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
Any questions for Mary at this stage? If not, we will happily bring up Chief Brian Whalen to give us the monthly Fire Chiefs update.
Sure. Thanks for having me, guys. Just want to give you guys a quick update on a couple things going on at the fire department. So far, we're at 124 calls for the year so far, which puts us on track right now to still have one of our busiest years ever. It'll be really close to last year if we stay on the same trajectory we're on now. So we'll see about that, but so far we've been handling all of them, with the personnel we've got. So that's where we're at for calls. As of right now, our engine 3 is still up in Gardner, getting a new radiator put in. They actually had to take out the old one, rebuild it, repair it, and put the old one back in because they don't make the radiator for these trucks anymore because it's almost 30 years old. So hopefully by the end of the week, I just spoke to them this morning, we should get that back in service. So we got that for vehicles. We've got 2 new interior qualified firefighters. They completed their basic fire school towards the end of June. So with the one other person who is currently in a firefighter 1 and 2 class right now, by the end of September, we should have 10 interior qualified firefighters in the department, which is the most we've ever had.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. So yeah, we've been doing that. For on the EMS side of things, we have received $15,000 from the state of Maine for from the EMS stabilization grant fund that most departments in the state got. Our little share of it was $15,000. We're going to take that money and we're going to put it towards buying a automatic CPR machine that will do chest compressions mechanically instead of having a person do it. So that's been what we've decided to spend the money on. We feel like it's well worth the money. It is a very large purchase for one piece of equipment because all that $15,000 is going towards that. Plus the GVFD is also contributing an additional $10,000. That's a $25,000 piece of equipment. But it's incredibly awesome to use, and it allows fewer people to do more work. And in a cardiac arrest situation, to be the most efficient that we can be possibly is absolutely the best thing we can do for that patient. So that's going to enable us to do have the responders do more while the machine's doing the compressions. So it'll be a huge asset to us, especially with responders who are getting up there in age, and the numbers of actual people responding are kind of dwindling a bit. That's what our next large purchase will be, and that's about it for I have for updates. But while we're at it real quick, I don't want to take up too much more time, but I'd like to propose to the select board, if I may, that I'd like to start having some discussions with the select board, myself, off town staff, community members, anybody who's interested truly, to possibly propose a working group to start discussing future plans for the fire department. We've been able to get by on doing what we're doing with the system we've had in place for a very long time, and we're very, very fortunate in that way. We've been able to carry this along much further than a lot of other communities have, and definitely more than other communities our size. So we're really fortunate in that way. But things are changing, and things are changing very fast. So I'm hoping to start a discussion with the town, amongst the town, with everybody who wants to participate, to hopefully help direct the future of fire and EMS response in the town of Georgetown, how we're going to make that work, what is feasible, what is economical, that kind of thing. So just want to throw that out there, some possible topics that we would like to start working towards. None of this is emergent. We're not in a bad position right now, but I just want to make sure we have a good plan to move forward for when things have to change, because it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. So things like EMS coverage, do we continue as we're going with volunteers? Do we contract? Do we have ambulance billing, or different response models? The future of MC1, are they still going to be around in 5-10 years? All these things like that. Qualified members for fire response, how many people we have trained up, how many qualified people, and how many people we get on an average response, that kind of thing. So things that could possibly affect that or help that out. Different staffing models, volunteer, on call, per diem, or paid, that kind of thing. And that will kind of help guide us in terms of future large purchases like vehicles and things like that. So I think it'd be good to have a solid plan in place for the future before we go spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars on new vehicles, or to replace the aging fleet that we have now. So anyway, didn't want to take up too much more of your time, just throwing it out there, see what you guys think. And I've got an open door. You guys all have my number. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions for the chief?
I don't. We'll just have to, whatever the.
All right, we'll work on setting up a task force.
Sure. Brian, what's the lifetime use of the new machine you're going to be buying, the new cardiac machine?
I don't have the number offhand. My best estimate right now is about probably 7 to 10 years.
Okay.
I know several departments in the state have had it for multiple years. They've only and they've been excellent. I use one in Bath when I work up there, and it's an amazing piece of equipment. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
For Chief Whalen. All right, we've now made it through our updates. We had no old business on the agenda. The first item of new business, however, was a request from the addressing officer for approval of a road name, Kensia Way, off of Route 127, currently known as 606 Five Islands Road. So effectively, the driveway now has two pieces off of it, and that requires by our addressing ordinance to have a road name. Typically, the addressing officer will go to the owners and ask what kind of name they would like. You then see if there's a similar like name in town. For instance, if we had Birch Road and then Birch Ave Road, probably create some EMS issues down the road. There is no other like name to Kensia Way at present.
Does it need a motion?
It does.
I'll move to approve the new address of Kensia Way.
Second?
Seconded by Bromley.
All right, everybody in favor? All in
Perfect.
favor?
Look at that. And the next item is we're gonna talk a little bit about items for a future special town meeting. We will be having a conversation later about some possible multi-party contracts. Those will be items that have to be put on our special town meeting when we get there. Just in terms of targeting at present, we are awaiting some contract-related items. I believe it's possible that we could get those before our September 10th meeting. And then depending on the timeliness and how close we are to the 10th, we could potentially schedule a special select board meeting for the purpose of a warrant to kick that off a little bit earlier. More realistically, I think at our September 10th meeting, I think we will be in a position where we should hopefully be able to have the warrant ready to rock with a couple of items. And so setting that, I wanted to share, and there was an item in your packet about some additional ARPA monies. We are gonna have actually close to $10,000 left in ARPA when this is over, that we can look towards new projects. So John got in, or Maine Moss got in today, the quote that they had for $26,468 for the culvert that we previously approved. That is $532 less than the 27,000. We did with our commercial floats at the time of town meeting last year. We were still waiting on invoices to come in and make sure we had everything cleared. There's an additional $9,420 that they came in under budget, which is great. And with the conference room, we had dedicated $3,000. The new computer, which is smaller than, a bread box. You could fit the computer in the owl in a bread box. The install, all of it came in under, we're looking at approximately, we're waiting on that invoice, another $700. So we're looking around 10.5, 10.6. And what I'm thinking, and really, I want to be as transparent as possible, make sure the board has the information it needs to make good decisions. We could see if the town office wanted to make a recommendation. I also thought it would be a good idea if select board members wanted to take some time and think about
Right.
the proposed budget, come back preferably by next Thursday, I would say, with at least first passes on ideas. The ARPA rules are very, very, very long, and I think instead of explaining every if this, then that with ARPA tonight, to be mindful of folks' time, if folks want to get proposals to me or ideas, I'd be happy to then compare them to the ARPA rules, talk with our contacts at MMA, and just make sure that, yep, it meets the straight face test. I do think that 10.5 is a sizable chunk of money in a small enough town where it could make a little bit of a difference. So on the ARPA side of things, I know I'm talking a lot and meandering around. Were there any questions there? Because as we know, ARPA funds have to be dedicated at a town meeting vote before the select board can authorize. So now that we've got the quote from Maine Moss for the culvert, at our next meeting, we'll be able to authorize the work because that's the next step. So because we have this extra 10,000 and change, and I don't like keep using the word extra, but we do at this point, time is of the essence for us to be diligent in thinking about areas we could target.
So,
And this money has to be allocated by when and spent by
December.
when?
So we need to have it dedicated at a town meeting vote by December 31st, 2024. So if we really wanted to have a special town meeting on New Year's, we could all get together at the very least.
We could
And
have
then
a
we have
party,
2
yeah.
years. And then we have 2 years
To use it.
to get it done. So by December 31st
Okay.
of 2026, all of the money should be gone. And frankly, it will be gone well before then. So
Yeah, I'll just throw that out right now. We should look at what came out of the energy audit and see what, what makes sense to do that's attainable, and is an effective use of those funds. So
Absolutely.
that's one thing I'll just throw out. And thank you for the time. I've put it in my calendar, to get back to you, Tyler, by next Thursday.
And the good news, if the town office was going to make a recommendation, the energy audit was right. I mean, thinking alike, because
Right.
that is a really great opportunity. I also want to turn over in regards to that special town meeting. So we're going to have hopefully 2 contracts to approve by the voters. a determination on ARPA funds or several determinations on ARPA funds. We also are going to need to tackle our general assistance budget, and I'll let Mary speak to that. And what? You bet. Perfect. Thank you.
As you know from the last meeting, I had mentioned that the general assistance budget, our entire budget was exceeded in the first month of our fiscal year. This is going to be an ongoing issue for us. General assistance is an unknown when you go to budget it. You're basing it on what you've had last year, we've had, general assistance at no general assistance in 2017, 2018, and 2020 and 2021. And other times we've had general assistance in excess of $9,000. Last year, just so that there's some, thought out there, the community center in its X fund last year spent out $13,000. And in fact, we've spent out over $10,000 a year in the X fund through the community center since 2020. That, I think, took a lot of burden off the town. And now, it's different cases and they qualify, so they're here. It was intended when general assistance came in to be an avenue of last resort. It is no longer that. So if we hold a special town meeting, we need to have a warrant article regarding general assistance. It would be my recommendation to increase the budget by $8,000. And I gotta tell you, I'm not sure that's gonna be enough.
What was your budget line for this fiscal year? Remind me.
$4,000.
Okay, it was 4, yeah.
And right now we're at 59, I believe.
Yeah. You probably will never be able to have a line item at 4 on that.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, the state does reimburse us if we do what we're supposed to do.
Right,
The state will reimburse us 70% of that.
yeah.
So we are getting some revenue back from the state on that. But general assistance, is growing by leaps and bounds. The requirements are growing by leaps and bounds. And if we were to say the county and the town should come together, general assistance is a big one.
Yeah.
You really need proper training.
Yeah.
They're now requiring you to have trauma training and have this, all these trainings that we simply don't have. Considered, another unfunded mandate. These things are required by us. So it's not something, we have to have general assistance. We have to have someone here to accept applications, to, check all the, dots, I's and T's and all that stuff. So it's becoming bigger and bigger all the time. So we are going to need to deal with that.
And is that you who primarily deals with it? Sorry, John.
I am the general assistance administrator. Currently.
Yeah.
Mary,
Yeah.
sorry, but the trauma training, et cetera, is that for the people who are applying for assistance, or is that for the people administering assistance?
Both actually, but no, it's just the state has come out, and state the minimum requirements. Training must include instruction on the purposes of general assistance program, the delivery of trauma-informed services and culturally and linguistically appropriate services. So it's just, new language. They know that it's problematic. I had a webinar last week about it. They're very aware that there are a lot of communities that simply are not equipped to deal with this. So.
And this was a big thing that did come up at the conference that I attended. In particular, Maine Municipal Association had put in a mega bill, so to speak, that was going to fix general assistance with more resources for
Right.
recipients as well as more resources for towns. Apparently, the legislature stripped the town side while keeping the resources for recipients, which is great and noble, but it didn't give the towns the tools it really needed to rise to the occasion.
And does MMA have a plan to help build training modules so that municipal officers can impart the kind of assistance that they're supposed to give to proposed recipients?
We haven't heard anything about that yet, but I do think DHHS is working.
Yeah.
And
They know.
And the Welfare Directors Association does annual trainings for
Right.
folks to get certified.
Right,
And I know last year Mary and I attended one of those,
okay,
but they include new changes to the law
Right.
in those as well. So
right,
I think there'll be a bunch about it probably at the convention. That's
yeah,
what I'm thinking.
okay.
But like I said, I did a webinar last
Yeah.
Thursday and they know, I mean, we were on there for like, it was supposed to be an hour long. We were there for like an hour and 45 minutes and there were a lot of questions being
Yeah.
asked, so.
So
Yeah.
if we're getting reimbursed, that 70%, is that almost getting rolled back around into it if we get it
We-
back? Or, I mean, is that, I mean,
Yeah, we-
essentially, we're gonna try, I mean, to cover
Right.
whatever.
Right, ideally, any additional revenues are just gonna come in
Yeah.
and rolled undesignated, yes.
So,
When we budgeted the $4,000, we also budgeted 70% of that as revenue. Is incoming revenue.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I see
Yep,
the
yep.
stuff I don't.
Yeah.
You know, 70% of 5950 is 4130, so that's what we would be reimbursed thus far. But still,
And,
as you said, we're at the very beginning of the fiscal year, pretty
Right.
much.
well, and
Yeah,
there.
we haven't even started winter yet,
and-
right?
And not to belabor the point, there are also, it's just important to remember, if you have a first-time applicant coming in for GA in an emergency situation.
Right,
That's the thing that concerns me more than anything, is I think that we fix this at town meeting, we're gonna be able to make sure the program's solvent through the end of the fiscal year, fingers crossed. But when you have the person come in April with their CMP disconnect notice and their house was heated with electricity, you don't get to help with the back months. The state is very clear about things, but you could see a bill of $2,000 or $3,000 that the town is kind of obligated to step in and help that person with. GA, you know, you set certain requirements that people follow up, check for housing and so on. First time cases with emergencies, you don't really,
right.
and it's a good thing to help folks, but at the same time, that's just something to keep in the back of.
Right.
So are we comfortable with bringing forward, when we get to the point of drafting that warrant, a modification to the GA budget like this?
I think so.
I think we
I am.
have to do that. We don't have a choice, really.
Hey, I'm glad we are all on the same page
So-
about that.
There's a star by it. Does that need a motion or?
No, that was that little star was to tell you it's in the packet. The big star is where we're gonna
Okay.
potentially take a vote. Which gets us to the next one, some possible revisions to the Solid Waste Management Committee's ordinance, and I let Bronwyn as the liaison speak to that. And I think she did a little bit in her report.
We circulated, did we not?
We did circulate it, yes.
Okay. And this comes out that, for unfortunately, 2/3 of the Solid Waste Committee are on vacation. It is the end of August in Maine. They're in Newfoundland, camping in the wilds of the Grand Canyon. And I don't know where the other people are, but they're not back until after the normal meeting would happen in September. So we discussed at the last meeting, putting on this coming warrant, the special meeting warrant, revisions to the ordinance that deal with enforcement of infractions. And the major impetus to do that in an isolated way was the installation of surveillance cameras and the discovery of the extent to which people are abusing the facility. Largely not with malicious intent, it would seem, but with impunity. So the proposed revisions would come directly from the attorney's review back before town meeting of revisions that the Solid Waste Committee had already approved in terms of reporting incidents, the authority of the select board to set fines, and the eventual possibility of refusing entry, as well as the immediate response of people working at the transfer station to shut down any illegal activity or activity that threatened public safety. So the wording in those proposed revisions has already been approved both by the committee and the attorney. The only change in the version that was circulated to the select board that hasn't been before both groups is the addition is just the addition of the wording in some section or other that entrance in the transfer station outside of the regular posted hours constitutes trespass, which seems pretty obvious. But on the other hand, it's also seemed like it might be a deterrent to some people that this isn't just as part of my town, as part of the place I can go. No, walking around that barrier is trespass. And trespass is a pretty universally understood illegal activity. So unfortunately, depending on when the special town meeting occurs, I'm not sure that the select board, the too many similar initials in solid waste committee and select board, but I'm not sure the solid waste committee will be able to meet before we approve a warrant for that special meeting. It's within our purview as a select board to go ahead and put up the wording for a hearing, public hearing, and either continue with it on the warrant or withdraw it if we find that it's not approved, not the will of the committee or for whatever reason. So anyhow, that's the background. I don't have the wording in front of me. You have it in an email somewhere, but that's the reason for it. And the other thing that occurs to me that we might need some legal advice about is if so far it is the ordinance assumes that we would be acting on infractions that were reported by attendance at the transfer station. But what if we are able to identify perpetrators from surveillance video? Is there a different procedure that we would need to follow to make subsequent fines acceptable, legally acceptable? And
I think, sorry, Bronwyn, I think the language would just need to be potentially edited before, so so that it's, essentially in any circumstance, doesn't have to be an attendant that identifies, but
right.
I would imagine it'd be fairly easy to edit that language so that it's more universally applicable.
So
And that's the only thing I would be suggesting here, that we get that kind of advice before we put it out at the special meeting. But I think the advantage of doing it now, as opposed to waiting until next June, is first of all, it's part of a response to these infractions that we know are happening. And it demonstrates that we intend to take action, not just to say, oh, everybody does it, it's no problem. And it focuses attention on that.
So at this stage, there was a document that we got from
Right.
Bronwyn with the revisions that largely came from Kristen. And in talking with Bronwyn about how we could get it onto this agenda, just to at least have a discussion here, with it being the select board sends the ordinances off to a public hearing,
Right.
we would have to decide whether or not we want to schedule a public hearing. My personal recommendation, if we were to do so, would be to schedule a public hearing a half an hour before the next select board meeting, and we could do a hybrid hearing on one ordinance versus a whole night at GHS and so on.
Will that give the either the solid waste committee or Kristen a chance to look at the stuff before that?
I think we could definitely get it before Kristen. The Solid Waste Committee, if my memory serves, changed the date of their meeting in September to a little bit later. I know Bronwyn has been in touch
Mhm.
with all of the committee members via email, and none of them have come back saying they're opposed to the game plan. Because last
Okay.
year, there was, I think, the big disagreement about the solid waste ordinance was the transporter piece.
Right,
Right,
Whereas universally, everyone agreed that we should codify, if there's an incident, call John within 24 hours or whoever the chair is. This is the step you follow. So I agree, we could get it off to Kristen for review. We could get it scheduled for a hearing, or this process all kicks off again in January and could be tackled in June, but I do think there's a timeliness piece.
with the cameras, it may be worth, it's
Right.
probably worth doing it, so.
right, I agree, and especially because one of the incidences involved hazardous waste.
Mhm.
You know, that's the most serious issue, you know, people just thinking I mean, we have no idea what all's been dumped there except for what the guys find when they show up for work.
So are we thinking that we would like to have some action be, we send the document to Kristen for review,
Mhm.
not looking for too much I mean, we're not looking to solve every problem. We're looking very specifically this problem because the committee will
Right.
do more of their work. And do we want to schedule a public hearing potentially the night of the 10th?
If we can get away with it, I think that's the way
And
to,
I think we'd probably want to direct that now-ish. So we have a vote saying, yes, the select board's moving forward with X.
And I just want to be clear that the committee, the consensus of the committee with the revised draft is they support the language that's in there, and we all understand there may need to be some tweaking to the point you were making, Bronwyn, about, you know, who identifies or how an infraction.
Yes, about the addition of electronic surveillance.
Yeah.
That issue wasn't specifically discussed, but I'm
Right.
quite sure that everybody would be on board about that. And we
Yeah.
can solicit opinions via email. I'm not sure everyone will be able to respond depending on the isolation of their vacation.
Right.
so we need a motion to get that going.
I think it would make sense to have some action so we can get the ball rolling.
I'd move to post a public hearing on the solid waste ordinance for September 10 at 6:30.
Perfect.
I second.
Seconded by Bowman. And just to add in as part of that motion, I think we wanted to have Kristen's review prior to that too, correct?
I was going to
Perfect.
make an extra motion for that, but sure, build it in. That's fine.
I second her second motion.
Everybody in favor, all in favor?
Perfect. And with that, I think we've got some good marching orders heading towards a warrant for the special town meeting.
And Kristen's due back tomorrow. I think I let you know that
Yes.
according to the email I got last week. Okay.
Awesome. That's it. Also, this is exciting. We've now finished new business. There were no items for signature. I would turn this back over to John for any final public comment before we go into an executive session.
So is there any public comment? I don't see any.
All right.
Good. So we will be going into executive session pursuant to 1 MRS section 405, section 6, section C. Executive session pursuant to acquisition of real property or economic development.
Moved by John,
Second.
second is by Bronwyn beat you, Aria.
I know.
Yeah, I did.
All in favor is 3-0. Perfect. So we are now headed into executive session, folks.
Thanks. Bye.
I am going to pause this.
And now do I just,
I move to adjourn.
that's what I wanted.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
8:39.
8:39.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.